Oh,
Do it right.
good to go? Go ahead, sir.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, July 17th, 7:06 p.m. Bear,
Here.
Briggs,
Yes.
Coulter,
Here.
Heidrich, Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Patke,
Here.
Reed, Wessels. Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated June 20th, 2023? Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Patke.
Yes.
Okay, need a motion to approve, you guys.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Patke, second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. Change order number 3 and final payment request for 2022 overlay project. Change order number 1 and final payment request 2023 overlay project. Final payment request for Rabbit Trail Extension. Liquor license approval for Wanderlust Market and liquor license renewals.
Need a motion or questions?
On the Lamke project, we just did less than what we originally thought we were going to do. Is that right?
Yeah, part of that one is we took out the, some Stafford Street repairs before we started the project because we thought the concrete was gonna go over, but then the concrete was pretty much on budget and then the asphalt was under, so.
So we didn't do less of a project.
We didn't do less, it was just kind of,
Okay, then I
things
read
got
wrong.
scaled back a little bit.
Well, cheaper is better.
Yeah.
Good job.
Make
More of
motion.
that. Second.
More of that? Okay, motion by Holtmeyer, second by Patke. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Priority items, Certificate of Appreciation, Optimist Club of Washington.
Someone from the Optimist Club here? Yes. Great. All right. Doug Hagedorn, I know you. Paul ready. Hi, Paul. No. Yes. Okay, City of Washington, Certificate of Appreciation presented to Optimist Club of Washington. Whereas the Optimist Club of Washington, Missouri was chartered August 15th, 1949, and have followed the mission by providing hope and positive vision, optimists bring out the best in youth, our communities, and ourselves. And whereas the Optimist Club has recently donated $7,000 for the purchase of playground benches, the James W. Rennick Riverfront Park, and water fountain at Optimist Park. Now therefore I, James D. Hagedorn, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, and on behalf of our governing body and all our citizens, do hereby tender this certificate of appreciation to extend a heartfelt thank you and express our appreciation to the Optimist Club for their generous donation to the Washington community. Thank you, Paul. Shall I stay up here?
Proclamation, Parks and Recreation Month.
Wayne, did you want to come up? Or the other?
Come on up.
Why don't we get the whole park folks up here too? Hi, Gavin. Hello, Mr. Mayor. Hi. Welcome, you guys.
You got a quorum.
I like doing stuff like this. This is great. This is great. Thank you, gang, for coming. Mayor's Proclamation, City of Washington, Missouri. Parks and Recreation Month. Got 8 whereases here. Okay. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the City of Washington. And whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of the community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the Parks and Recreation Department helps Washington be the best place for everyone to live, work, and play. Now therefore, I, James D. Hagedorn, Mayor of the City of Washington, do hereby proclaim July as Parks and Rec Month in the City of Washington. Congrats, you guys. Yeah,
Okay, I get to say something?
absolutely.
Okay, it's not going to be a joke. I thought about this coming out. I would like to thank the administration of this wonderful city, the council of this wonderful city, fellow park board members, and also the best park and recreation guy we've ever had here. So I'd like to thank all of you for that, making this a wonderful town and a great park system. Thank you.
Thanks, Sparky.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Police Department, Police Department appointment.
Dear council members, I herewith submit for your approval the following for appointment to the Police Department for a 6-month probationary term. Max Keeler. Jim, take it away, please.
All right. Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, council. I'd like to introduce Max Keeler. Go ahead. Say hi. He comes to us with some experience, well, quite a bit of experience. He was a police officer for Parker, Colorado, outside of Denver for 9 years. He's a former Marine also. As always, he's been through an extensive background investigation, intensive testing, so I recommend him for appointment.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Bear and somebody else. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Welcome to the department, Max.
Welcome aboard.
Look forward to getting to know you.
Police Department reappointments.
Okay. Go ahead.
Would you like me to go?
That was-
Okay.
we
So
got-
these are a list of 6 officers that were overlooked for reappointments. As you'll notice by some of the dates listed there, several are for their 6-month reappointment. But I do request that all of them be reappointed.
Your Honor, I'd like to just, for Sherry's information, Ian Ray is, the expires date is 2024 on here. So that would be 18 months instead of 6 months. You'll fix that? I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Patke, second by Bear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
By your vote, they are all reappointed. Thank you.
Special police appointments.
Okay, council, these are our annual fair duty officers. As you know, each year we seek out help with the fair just to supplement our force. This year I was able to obtain 7 outside agency officers of those listed, and I'm requesting that you just appoint them as special police officers just for the time of the fair.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Jim, will you do me one favor?
Sure.
If Officer McMillan, Bros, Ray, Worth, Chadwick, or Kelly are here, would they come forward?
Sure. All but Kelly's here.
I think it's only appropriate to see your face and know who you are.
Sure.
And recognize to the public. So again, again, congratulations on your reappointment. From my standpoint, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet.
Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee reappointments.
Dear council members, I herewith submit for your approval the following for reappointment to the Washington Area Transportation Committee, Highway Transportation Committee. Bill Miller and Bill Stropman, 2 oldies but goodies.
Make a motion.
Motion by Holmeyer.
Second.
Second by Patke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Public hearings, rezoning 2549 East 5th Street.
Yes, good evening, council. Get this. So there's 3 public hearings on your agenda tonight. The first 2 actually deal with the same project. The first is a rezoning, and the second is annexation for the same property. I'll kind of walk through here the details of that. But the subject property here is on East 5th Street, just on the east side of the street, north of Hillerman's. So just north of the highway intersection there of East 5th Street. You can see here it actually is 4 parcels currently, which is what I'll get into. 2 of them are currently in the city limits and 2 of them are outside the city limits. You can see there's an existing home here on this one parcel, and then the parcel that goes down along 5th Street is also in the city limits here. And then the rest of the property is bordered by Bush Creek and Du Bois Creek. Actually, it's where they come together before they enter the Missouri River. So you can see here on the zoning map, the 14 acres on the western side of the property is zone R1A, single-family residential, and then the eastern half of the property, the 19 acres, is outside the city limits. As you can see, the property is primarily surrounded by commercial zoning and uses. On the north side here, across the creek, there's commercial property that is currently vacant. There is the Old Patriot Towing here, still operated as a tow lot, but I'm not sure if it's currently Patriot. And then, obviously, with Hillerman's, the gas station, and the bank and the hotel to the south, the car wash, and then this vacant lot here. What I want to point out on the lot where my laser pointer is, that is currently C2 General Commercial. In 2019, the Plain Zoning Commission and City Council actually approved a rezoning to PDR for a higher density multifamily development. The reason it actually didn't go R3 is that at that time the applicant wanted a higher number of units than what was currently permitted in R3, and so they requested the PDR. That was actually approved by both Plain Zoning Commission and City Council for an apartment complex on this lot, but our PDRs have a 2-year clock. If they're not constructed on, it reverts back. That project never came to fruition, so that reverted back to C2. So that is why you see it as such on the zoning map. The Willows in this area, I just want to point out some other multifamily. This is a multifamily development, senior housing complex on Willows down at the bottom of the hill here. There actually is multifamily right across the street at the corner of Brookview. It's vacant lot, but it is zoned for multifamily. And then there is actually a multifamily apartment building north of the site here at the intersection of Old 100 and East 5th. And then actually here, this is C1 neighborhood commercial that is actually now non-conforming. That is also a multifamily assisted living facility. So there are some multifamily type uses in the area, as you can see. And as for the developable land of the property, just because, when you talk about density and what's actually buildable, you can see here, this is the flood maps. We overlay this with what we get from FEMA on our aerial, so these aren't perfect. The applicant will have to get a survey to show exactly where these lines are. But the hatched lines really show what is unbuildable in floodway. And then anything in this blue or orange, that's the 100 and 500, will require floodplain development permits. So you can kind of see the main buildable area here is outside of that buffer. And then the topo, it's on the site plan as well, but you can see here that the site does have some significant topo, this bluff here along the creek, and it actually valleys down in between, so it's kind of split into two halves. Here is there's a peak and then slowly tapers out, kind of a plateau here, but you can kind of just see how the topo, so it's not necessarily a flat site where you're going to see tons of apartment buildings. It's going to have some significant grades and roads going into different sites. One thing I want to point out, and I just want to reiterate, it's in my staff report, the applicant was willing to provide a preliminary draft site plan of the kind of development they are interested in putting here, just to show that it is kind of full life cycle housing in the sense of giving diverse housing options, from duplexes to quadplex townhomes all the way up to traditional apartment buildings, and then have some amenities as well. There's pickleball courts here on the north side, a clubhouse and pool as well, so it is a development with amenities. One thing we want to point out, and we brought this up at the Planning and Zoning Commission, is that this vote tonight is strictly for the validity of the R3 zoning in this location. It is not for this actual site plan. There was some discussion about the layout of this and what would be the best for emergency services. All of that would have to go through our site plan committee, including engineering, communications, our fire department, to be reviewed and approved by staff. And so if there's any questions or concerns on that, I just want to reiterate that we will have the ability to fully comment on the site plan in the future. But since the applicant submitted this information, we thought it'd be good to put into the packet. And so again, here, this is just the overview zoning. City staff does recommend approval of the rezoning of this portion here from R1A single-family residential to multifamily R3. Our comprehensive plan has been pretty clear about setting some objectives of entertaining and encouraging life cycle housing as well as diverse housing options, and I think this does both by having not just traditional apartment buildings, but also townhomes, condos, all for rent. One of the goals in there is to encourage opportunities for renters to be able to become homeowners in the city limits, and I think this is an opportunity for that to happen. We have seen there is a very low vacancy rate in our apartments currently in the city limits, and actually I know the applicant can attest to that for his current buildings, has low vacancy rate. And as for the surrounding zoning, there's a pretty intensive commercial uses in the area, so this is a good transitional use between commercial and residential. We typically don't encourage single-family residential right up against commercial. We like to have some type of what we call transitional zoning, which is what this R3 would be. And lastly, with us, with all that being said, having those goals in the comprehensive plan, it can be difficult to find developable property in the city limits that meets those requirements just because of how developed the city is around our commercial areas. And so being able to find a piece that is adjacent to those commercial uses, I think this bodes well, or it sets up the property well to be an appropriate zoning for multifamily. So like I said, staff does recommend approval. This went to the Planning and Zoning Commission last week and did pass unanimously approval to approve the zoning and annexation as well. So happy to answer any questions.
So I guess, obviously, the heartache that I've heard, and it came up at P&Z, and I'm sure you were talked to about it too, the intersection there at East 5th and 100, and what are the plans there to, I know we're now looking at a site plan right here and only 2 entrances into the complex here, but there's a lot of heartburn over the
existing
wait time at Highway 100, not having a right turn lane there, all of those things that we just talked about with the rabbit trail at some length this year. So
Yeah, and that is, I mean, that has been an existing concern without this development, and we
Correct.
have obviously looked at that with MoDOT. I believe there are potential plans for turn lanes on there with some MoDOT, with some improvements to the highway that they're doing. But at this time, it's not a recommendation to make the applicant add any of those improvements.
No other questions?
This is a public hearing, so I can
Okay.
switch it over to the applicant whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Ask if the applicant will want to come up.
Applicant, is Ed here? Yes, you are. And Cameron, okay? Go ahead, Cam.
Cam, here's your laser pointer.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I think Sal did a very good job of giving you an overview, so we'll just go through maybe a few more points on the slide. So the developer is here tonight, Ed. He's with ELS Properties. Just to give a little background, he is the developer that developed the Shoe Factory Edition and 100 West. So he's familiar with the codes and building process here in the city. So he's excited to bring you another project. And as Sal mentioned, there's a low vacancy rate relative to the life cycle housing. So we believe this is another great place for another successful project. So as Sal mentioned, the goal is to annex 19.4 acres as R3, also to rezone 16.15 acres from R1A to R3. And right now, as it's planned, there's about 196 family units on that property. As Sal mentioned, he gave you a good idea of where the property is located at. As far as the annexation, this is a little bit more detailed map on that. There's about 19.4 acres that lies in the northeast side of Hillman's, kind of south side of, I guess, the old Seco building. I won't get into the zoning, but Sal made the case for how it makes sense to annex and rezone this as R3, giving the surrounding uses topographically and current land use. Like I said, there's the area to be rezoned to R3. And so as Sal mentioned, we made just a few little modifications to the sketch plan after we'd submitted to those to Sal. This is a little bit cleaner looking plan. And as Sal mentioned, there is the life cycle housing from the 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, all up to the 16-unit 2-story structures that like Ed's got on 100 West. So what's that kind of look like as far as density? It's about 35 acres in totality. There's about 196 dwelling units proposed. The density equates to about 5.5 dwelling units per acre. How does that relate to your other densities? So R1A, that's about 4 units or 4 structures per acre. R1B is about 7. R1D, which is kind of what the overlook is zoned and the creek and whatnot, that's about 5. R2, 7. R3 could be 21, but what Ed's proposing here is about 5 units per acre. So it's about 1 per 7,900 square feet. So it's similar to an R1D density. As far as green space, in this particular instance, because of the floodway, floodplain, topographical issues, there's about 26 acres of green space that will not be roof, parking lot, driveways. So that's, in this case, it's about 73%, almost 3/4 that will remain green. So it's a fair amount of it. This is a typical A building. This is 100 West. A C building, 8 units. F building, the garages. And like Sal mentioned, I'll just stop here for a minute. This does provide a great, for someone that's outside the area wanting to locate here that doesn't have a house available because there is lower housing stock. This is a way to transition into the community and then hopefully transition to a home. And then as Sal mentioned, the amenities, the dog park, the playground, the pickleball court, pavilion, just some passive areas. So in summary, rezoned 16 acres from R1A to R3, annexed 19.4 acres, similar to an R1 density. That's about 73% of the property's entire green space. Sorry I kind of rushed through that, but does anybody have any questions about anything? I thought Sal did a good job, so I didn't go very slow. Ed's here tonight. If you have any questions for him, I'll step away. Thank you.
Thanks, Cameron.
Yes, good evening. Ed Schmeltz, developer. So I don't know how to follow those two guys very well, but they did a pretty good job, obviously. But so I guess, does anybody have any questions for me?
No. Appreciate you giving Martian quality housing.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing all that.
Thank you. No, we've had quite a bit of success. As I said in the past, you know, our phone just rings every day looking for places over here. And right now, we don't have anything available. You know, between 100 West and the Shoe Factory, we're totally full with waiting lists. So we feel like this gives us just something a little bit different. You know, I feel like we have the west side of town covered. You know, we have a little bit in the central part of town. This gives us something on the east side of town, and also it gives us something a little bit different. It is a little bit lower density than your 100 West, and obviously the Shoe Factory. If you look at that map, basically everything over to where our proposed retention pond is, everything there has garages. So that's something we don't, I mean, we have a few garages at 100 West, but not a lot of them. You know, mostly it's the two-story, higher density apartment buildings. But these are a little bit lower density, you know, duplexes, fourplexes that provide some garages. And then when you get to the back, kind of further off the road, and obviously it's because we get into some flatter areas, we'll try to make up for a little bit of density with some of the 16 units. So we feel like it's, you know, we're fulfilling a need on a different part of town with a little bit different of a product also. So,
Thanks again.
Thank you, Ed.
thank you. And if anybody's wondering, we are actually keeping the old farmhouse, the brick farmhouse on there. That's going to be our clubhouse. So we've got some really neat ideas there for that, and then we will be doing a pool back behind there. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak?
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else in the audience like to speak? Okay.
Make a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Holtmeyer to accept into the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
An ordinance rezoning 2549 East Fifth Street from R1A Single Family Residential to R3 Multifamily Residential in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke?
Introduced by Patke. Any further discussion on this, you guys? No? Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance rezoning 2549 East Fifth Street from R1A Single Family Residential to R3 Multifamily Residential in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, the ordinance passes.
Annexation 19.4 acres, Edge Smells.
So this is just the public hearing following for the annexation of the 19 acres. And actually, for the newer annexation laws, the reason we have to have a public hearing for this is because it's coming in as requested for R3 instead of the default R1A. So, and then the item directly after is the ordinance.
Throw this open, too.
Open this up.
Yes, please. Anybody else in the audience like to comment on this? Okay, questions?
Make a motion to accept?
Motion by Patke, second by Holtmeyer to accept. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. D, please.
An ordinance annexing 19.4 acres off Fifth Street as R3 multifamily residential into the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke?
Introduced by Patke. Okay. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
An ordinance annexing 19.4 acres off Fifth Street as R3 multifamily residential into the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, 3D passes the ordinance. E, please.
Parking minimum reduction for multifamily developments.
All right, yes, thank you. So this next public hearing is for a requested by staff to reduce the parking minimums for apartments. Currently, our code requires 2 spaces for each dwelling unit, regardless of how many bedrooms it has. So even if it's a studio, where you'd more typically find someone that could very easily be in a single-car household, or it's a 3-bedroom unit, it had 2 spaces across the board. And then as we didn't have apartments proposed for a long time because of our density was so low. And then when we increased our density in 2018, as you are all aware, we have had an increase in these requests, just like we've had tonight. And as we've looked at these developments, and as we've looked at other sections of our code, we've strived to make sure we're not over-parked in some situations. Actually, in 2019, we reduced our parking minimum for retail. We actually reduced it by about 20% because a lot of our commercial developments were over-parked for their typical use, and we wanted to do the same really for our apartments for 2 reasons. One, it is more developer-friendly. You're not putting as much of an onus on a developer to put parking spaces that aren't going to be utilized. And 2, as we get further into our MS4 audit and looking at stormwater runoff, that is a big area that we can tackle for future developments of reducing the size of our required parking lots. And so, as I described in my letter, we did look at some other communities, more particularly kind of communities not so much in the more urban St. Louis area, but right outside. So St. Peter's, O'Fallon, and St. Charles were 3 good examples. St. Peter's and O'Fallon actually have the same code we are proposing tonight, and St. Charles kind of had they split the middle at 1.7 across the board, so instead of doing it by bedroom, they just did 1.7 units. And so what we are proposing is that it would be 1.5 spaces for each 1-bedroom unit and 2 spaces for each 2-bedroom unit and above. And so that does give a little bit of leeway there for when a developer has a handful of single bedrooms or studio units that they don't have to have 2 parking spaces for each. A good example of this actually is the Shoe Factory. That went through a plan development, so they got their own parking calculation. But when that came forward, he had shown a certain percentage that had studio units, and so we actually reduced that to about 1.7 per unit. And as you can see, I think that Ed would say it's not over-parked. They have plenty of parking there. And then we did look at the American Planning Association's recommendations, and they gave plenty of other communities our size that have similar allowances for single bedrooms. So Planning and Zoning had a public hearing on this last week and voted unanimously to amend the code to as proposed. And then at the public hearing, there were no comments given. So be happy to take any questions.
Anyone in the audience like to comment? Great. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry, I missed you.
Mike John, 610 Robert Street. Can you explain 1.5?
Yeah, so 1.5 parking spaces per single bedroom unit. And we always round up. And so that instead of having, if they had 5 1-bedroom units, they used to have 10. And now it'd be, now I'm going to make myself do math on front of 8, thank you.
I'm just trying to understand it. When I read the packet,
Yeah,
I just
7.5
didn't
round up,
understand.
thank you. But
It
so
just rounds up.
yeah.
Oh, I understand that.
Okay.
But so who violates and who doesn't violate? It just, I think you're doing this and you're going to low, I think you said you did it because of the runoff and you guys got your hands slapped and that's figuratively. I just think you're going towards low-hanging fruit.
Well, it's
doing
just
this.
one item that we, that,
Right, are you planning on doing it to homeowners too?
no, this is just for multifamily.
Just right.
Yeah.
The lower income, planning and zoning all own homes, and most people live in apartments, don't come to meetings and stuff like that. I just don't think, I just think we should do this across the board if we're gonna do this. Is that your plan?
You mean across the board, Mike, like in the sense of like single-family homes,
Yeah.
2-family homes, all
If we're
that?
worried about the runoff, are we just aiming towards the lower
Well,
class?
single-family homes don't have parking lots, so that's where it doesn't necessarily have as much of an issue. This is just to reduce the size of the actual parking lot that goes along with the development.
People typically don't overbuild a driveway for a single-family unit.
Right, right. I'm just saying.
Unless they got a lot of,
I understand totally. I understand totally. I just think it looks like overreach again, that we're just overreaching, and it seems like we're going down here. And I just want the playing field to be same, where it doesn't matter what you make, it's all the same.
Yeah, we have parking calculations for each use.
We're not limiting the amount of people that can park there. We're making the developer so he can make a smaller parking lot. If somebody lives there, they have 2 cars.
Yeah, but if you have a single family and you got 2 people living in that apartment, you've already, you know, and they got a work vehicle and everything, I just think it's kind of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if we thought through all this.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we looked at the American Planning Association's recommendations, we looked at other communities. I mean, it's fairly common to just give a split down the middle. So instead of 1 space per unit and 2 spaces per unit, do 1.5, because then you're basically hedging your bets that you're going to have a percentage of those single bedrooms that aren't going to have 2 cars.
Right.
You're just anticipating the end user not having 2 cars 100% of the time.
Right. I just want to make sure that we're playing on a playing field that's level, because you brought up the rain runoff water and everything like that there, and I know you want a smaller parking lot and everything. I just want to make sure that the community is being treated the same.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Okay.
we're not,
yeah.
we're not
I-
making anyone put
that's-
any more.
I'm just here to ask, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And if nobody asks, nobody asked. That's what you just said. Nobody went to the meeting, everybody voted unanimously, and it was fine.
That's why you're up here, Mike, and that's
And
why.
that's why I show up.
You bet.
Yeah, so, thank you. This wasn't to be a problem. I just wanted an
not.
explanation and stuff.
Yep.
So,
So obviously, this hasn't been a problem in any of the other places that it's working.
Correct, yeah. I mean, I think,
Nobody's looking for a parking spot.
correct, yeah. And a good example is when we have developers who haven't developed here before, they look at our calculation, they think, oh, 2 per unit, that's high compared to most cities they work in. So we were higher than
And what were the other cities that you looked at, Sal? I can't remember.
St.
Charles
Peter's,
or
St. Peter's, O'Fallon, and St. Charles were the 3
Yeah.
in the region,
Yeah.
and then the national average that we
Right.
looked at from APA.
okay. I just want to make sure everything's on the same playing field.
Yep.
For everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Okay.
Motion to accept in a minute.
Motion by Patke, second by Hopmeyer to accept. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
By your vote, it's accepted into the minutes. F, please.
An ordinance amending section 400.265.c of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Bear.
Introduced by Bear. No discussion? Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance amending section 400.265.c of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Halter.
Yes.
By your vote, we have a new ordinance.
Citizens' comments?
Would anyone in the audience like to make a comment? Okay, thank you.
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a depository contract by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Bank of Franklin County.
Introduced by Patke.
thanks for fixing that, Mary.
No problem. I don't know if it makes a difference, but. Good evening, council and mayor. Back in May, I sent out a request for proposal for banking services. It went out to all the local banks, and 3 banks returned a proposal. Bank of Franklin County, Bank of Washington, and First State Community Bank. And all 3 local banks returned a proposal that offered no cost for, no fees and no costs, which is pretty much unheard of in the local community. I go to all the GFOA conferences, and pretty much in the 15 years I've been doing this, I've not heard of any other community that offers that. Usually there's at least $300 to $500 in fees every month that a government receives in fees. So that's pretty much just unheard of. So we had 3 different banks that offered us that opportunity. So that's great. So basically what it boiled down to was the way that they calculate the investment income that we would earn. So without getting into too much detail, I did take this to the Finance Committee. And basically, the difference between the rates, First State Community Bank basically was only going to pay us about 70% of the federal funds rate. So, and the other 2 banks were paying us 100% of the, whether it be the 30-day Treasury bill rate or the federal funds rate. So the Bank of Franklin County and the Bank of Washington were more competitive, basically. So what we had done 2 years ago, what the Finance Committee recommended and what you approved was to maintain Bank of Franklin County as our bank depository, and then any excess funds we would look at investing with Bank of Washington, and that worked out really well. And that was 2 years ago, and the interest rates at the time were 0.25%. Since then, interest rates have increased, and right now they're right around 5.25 is what we're earning. So, and that's just really been in the last 10 months, I guess, that they've increased that to that level. So definitely it's more competitive. When I did my analysis, basically the sweet spot between the 2 rates is about 4%. So when I brought that to the Finance Committee and took a look at the rates, I put a little tool in my spreadsheet that allowed me to look at the cash balances and between the 2 banks and look at the cash balances and determine how much I could have at both banks and transfer between the 2 banks to earn the best and maximize that investment rate between utilizing both banks, and if we could still manage that. And I feel that we can still keep the bank depository as Bank of Franklin County and still invest those excess funds through Bank of Washington. Because what happens is if the rates were to go back down, Bank of Franklin County does have a minimum floor of 1%, where Bank of Washington's floor is 0.51%. So, having said that, I think our recommendation is to keep the Bank of Franklin County as our bank depository and invest those excess funds like we've been doing with Bank of Washington. Bank of Franklin County does have a minimum that we have to keep with them of $5 million. Right now we have approximately $12 million with them, and we have $5.9 million with Bank of Washington. So I know that's kind of a high-level analysis, but does anybody have any questions?
It's good. Thanks for the homework, Mary.
Yeah, good job. Thank you. Okay.
And the ordinance will follow, so
Motion to accept.
thank you.
Okay.
Second.
No, there's no motion.
There's no motion, it's an ordinance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, need someone to introduce it.
Patke.
Yeah, Jeff already did.
He did.
Thought so.
He did, yeah. Okay, second reading, unless there's any questions.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a depository contract by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Bank of Franklin County. Patke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 7A passes. B, please.
An ordinance accepting the bid from Modern Auto for the purchase of a 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD four-wheel drive crew cab and chassis.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
Good evening, council. In your packet is numerous letters this evening. The first being for a 3,500 one-ton truck for the fire department, a single axle. This truck, the plan is to replace a 2012 truck that we currently have in the fleet, maintain the 2012 as an alternate use, and put a more purpose-built body on the back of this truck. Though we did get bids from Don Brown as well as Modern Auto, and Modern Auto was low, being a local bidder.
Great.
There,
So when are you gonna get this truck? It seems like there's a delay here.
that's a great question. I wish I had the crystal ball to tell you that.
According to the letter, they can't tell you.
Right.
They can't. Hopefully in '24 is what we were told.
That'd be nice.
The bed will not be made until the truck is either on-site or confirmed being shipped to on-site.
Will the company come get it and put the bed on it?
We'll take it up to, like the Parks Department and City Streets do. Same body maker.
Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
We actually wanted a Ford F-350. However, Ford's order bank for anything other than a 150 and some other vehicles on truck side is closed. You cannot order a 250, 350, 450, or 550 right now. Not available.
Crazy world.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
An ordinance accepting the bid from Modern Auto for the purchase of a 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD four-wheel drive crew cab and chassis. Patke.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 7B passes. C, please.
An ordinance accepting the quote from Knapp-Hyde for the purchase of a 60-inch Knapp-Hyde bed.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
On the bed is a Napa-Hyde bed from St. Peter's, very similar to what street departments would purchase. This bed is a little taller than what most beds are. It would accommodate our equipment a little better. There is some, the pricing, and there's a not to exceed. We've got some inclination from the vendor that painting it red may cost a little more, so we wanted to make sure we came to you with a total price so we wouldn't have to come back for an amendment in the future. So there's either $1,500 or $1,800 more than what the actual quoted price is, with the anticipation that there'll be a paint cost. So we're asking not to exceed. I forgot to mention the previous, this is a budgeted item in this year's budget. We're moving this as well as the other vehicles, everything we had, into 2024's budget. 2023, 2024.
Questions? Go ahead.
An ordinance accepting the quote from Knapp-Hyde for the purchase of a 60-inch Knapp-Hyde bed. Patke.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Coulter.
Yep.
By your vote, ordinance 7C passes. D, please.
An ordinance accepting the bid from Chris Offenberg Ford for the purchase of two 2024 Ford Expedition SSV response vehicles.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
On this bid, it's, what we're looking for is two SUVs. In the past, the chief has had a vehicle. We've budgeted in 22, 23 for an SUV in that budget year, as well as an SUV. In the next budget year, one would be replacing the vehicle I have. We would maintain that vehicle, either as a duty vehicle, or we've been asked by the drone guys to kind of have it set up a little bit more to support that. And working with Monarch's assistant chief, there's some very good things that he has set up in his. We wanted to, obviously, the preference would have been to stay with the Tahoe. We know it, we've had one for a while. The Tahoe order bank in 2022 opened up for 9 hours. We were told that the order bank is going to open up for Chevrolet Tahoes in August, but we're not for sure. Ford's order bank for the special, SSV is a special service vehicle made for police and fire, and so that order bank is open presently. We were able to get a bid from Chris Offenberg. We did reach out to Schicker Ford as well, did not receive a bid, and Mockins as well. Mockins has traditionally been the state bid dealer. State bids for these types of vehicles is going away from our understanding, that the state will no longer, the dealers are no longer able to provide a bid and stand behind it. Therefore, state bidding for vehicles seems to be drying up.
Probably because they don't know when they can get vehicles.
That's a big part of it. The budget amount will have to be tweaked, I believe, a little bit for the next year's budget based on the cost. It's $1,100 difference, $1,160 difference.
No further questions, guys? Okay, Sherry.
An ordinance accepting the bid from Chris Offenberg Ford for the purchase of two 2024 Ford Expedition SSV response vehicles. Patke?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yep.
By your vote, ordinance 7D passes.
Thank you. And to answer Joe's question on this one, they're telling us December, maybe January on these, so,
Fast.
well, quicker. Thank you all.
Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to enter into an agreement with St. Francis Borgia Regional High School, St. Francis Borgia Grade School, Our Lady of Lourdes School, and Emmanuel Lutheran School for the assignment of one school resource officer.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Hopemeyer.
Good evening again, council. As I stated in my letter, by the way, I apologize for my voice. I'm not sure what's going on, but I woke up this way, so it's gotten a little better throughout the day, but we'll see if I can get through this. Yeah, no kidding. I feel fine, which is a good thing. So anyway, I was approached by administrators from a couple of the parochial schools in town, just to kind of see if the feasibility of adding an SRO. So we had a few meetings. Long story short, ultimately, it was agreed upon that 4 schools would partner for one SRO, so that being Borgia High School, Borgia Grade School, Emmanuel Lutheran, and Lourdes. The SRO would be shared amongst those 4 schools, and they would all share in the cost of it also. Speaking of cost, it would be exactly what the Washington School District pays currently for an SRO, for fairness, so that it's all the same. Basically, it's a 9 months salary and benefit for one officer, because the other 3 months when school's out, we get that officer back. So Father Mike is here representing at least Borgia. So if you have any questions, I did get a firm commitment from all of them that it would be a long-term commitment if we agree to this. So it would just be 1 year, and then what? So they did agree. They gave me the word that it'd be a long-term commitment. Other than that, I just recommend that you approve it. If you have any questions.
I think it's something that's been talked about for a long time, and I think the SRO program in the School District of Washington is very prevalent, and it works, and we speak highly of that. So the parochial kids, there's presence there, but I think this is going to be a good thing.
Sure, I agree.
Father Mike, what's it going to look like? Predominantly at Borgia High School, or how they split?
We're thinking like 50% of the high school.
Mm-hmm.
You got to talk.
We're thinking it'll be about 50% at the high school and then split among the other schools. And then again, with a varied schedule about when this person is where, so that there's no predictability to it. But just to assure you, I'm moving on, but Father Jim and I have both talked to our successors, and they're both supportive of this. So, and they realize that it needs to be a long-term commitment.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Further questions, guys? Go ahead.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to enter into an agreement with St. Francis Borgia Regional High School, St. Francis Borgia Grade School, Our Lady of Lourdes School, and Emmanuel Lutheran School for the assignment of one school resource officer. Patke?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
Ordinance 7E passes. F, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an agreement with Jokers Paving and Contracting, Inc. for the 2023 Third Street Overlay and Improvements Project and amend the 2023 budget.
Go ahead.
Introduced by Patke.
So this is our Third Street project from 47 to Jefferson Street. It's our grant project. The bid put together, or the estimate put together 5 years ago when we put the application in was $900,000 roughly. Cost of everything for projects has gone up significantly, as you can see. So the new estimate was about 1.3. Bids came in at 1.5. We had a bunch of bidders, so we feel good with the bid. It's still gonna be reimbursed about $680,000 federal dollars, and then we put in an application for another $100,000 with the county, so.
When are they could proceed, as soon as this?
We reached out, they haven't given us a date yet, just because we're waiting on this, I guess, to get a pre-con going, but we assume pretty soon, so, and paving next spring, so.
Further questions? Thanks, Charles.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of agreement with Jokers Paving and Contracting, Inc. for the 2023 Third Street Overlay and Improvements Project and amend the 2023 budget. Patke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yep.
Ordinance 7F passes. G, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an economic development agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission.
Bear.
Introduced by Bear.
Yes, thank you. So this is for the next step in our grant with MoDOT. We have to have an agreement with them to accept the stipulations of the grant. It's for $1.6 million for them to for us to put the improvements at Highway 100 from Vossbrink to Waterman Drive there for the Oldenburg Industrial Park. It'll have turn lanes and tapers as well as the apron for the new park and to Oldenburg Industrial Park. It is 100% funded, including engineering for the project. So that's actually why we did, if you remember, we did 2 contracts with Cochrane, one for the interior, one for MoDOT, because this portion, engineering can be reimbursed by MoDOT. And then when we put the application together, we actually worked with Lockmuller Group to get the most accurate numbers. So they were 2022 numbers, so kind of during the peak, as well as an 8% inflation. So this agreement stipulates that any overage, that 1.6, will be our responsibility. But right now, we are confident that we built in to the higher prices we've been seeing. So if not, hopefully that 8% will cover us.
Are we the ones going out for bid, or is MoDOT bidding?
We will be, yeah. And those plans have actually already been submitted to them, and they've come back with comments. We've been kind of going at the same, to speed up, we've been already submitting plans to them, even though this hasn't been passed, but they knew that since it's 100% funded, there was not really any concern that this was going to get passed.
As soon as we get back, then we'll go out for bids.
Yes, yep. They sent back some comments, but it was minor. Having Lockmuller having the study done beforehand was very helpful, that they had already reviewed that set of plans once, so.
Thank you.
Other questions, guys? Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an economic development agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. Patke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Coulter.
Yes.
By your vote, 7G passes. H, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a subrecipient contract between the County of Franklin, Missouri and the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Patke. Doesn't matter. Okay.
Your Honor, you've got 2 ordinances, items 7H and 7I. The City of Washington made an application for the county's ARPA grants that they opened up for other entities within Franklin County. We were successful at receiving with this first one on 7H, $1 million towards the South Point groundwater storage tank, which is located at the corner of South Point Road and North Goods Mill. And then 7I is for the Oldenburg Industrial Park. We would receive an additional $200,000 on that agreement for infrastructure going into the park. Cost breakdowns are on the letter, if you haven't seen them. So.
Questions? Go ahead.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a subrecipient contract between the County of Franklin, Missouri and the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, 7H passes. Let's read I, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a subrecipient contract between the County of Franklin, Missouri and the City of Washington, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke. Any further comments or questions, guys? Go ahead.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a subrecipient contract between the County of Franklin, Missouri and the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, 7I passes. J, please.
An ordinance repealing the provisions of Title III Traffic Code, Schedule VI, Turning Movements, Table VI-A, No U-Turns of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
So Traffic Committee reviewed this at our last meeting. It was brought up, and we found that we have a bunch of no U-turn intersections throughout town. A lot of them are on Main Street, 2nd Street, 5th Street. There's only one sign in place currently. It's at Elm and Main Street, and it's kind of old, so we were asked if that needs to be replaced. Well, we have ordinance for all these, so there should really be signs at all these intersections. But we discussed it. There's not a significant crash history or complaints in those areas, so we went ahead and decided to repeal all of those no U-turns. Any questions?
Okay. Thanks, Charles. Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance repealing the provisions of Title III Traffic Code, Schedule VI, Turning Movements, Table VI-A, No U-Turns of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yep.
Ordinance 7J passes.
Commission, Committee, and Board Reports. 1780 High Street PDR Preliminary Plan Review.
Yes, good evening, council. So about a month ago, or actually a little bit longer, because this takes a long review, we received an application for rezoning and development plan approval for the property located here on High Street, just south of the existing Riverbend Estates, and actually across from the Phase 3 we'll be talking about at the next item. This property here, and actually our maps were not up to date, but was annexed as R1C, single family attached, which allows for duplexes on the property. And then the applicant, Bridgewater Communities, came in with an application to allow for basically duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, then up to 6-unit buildings. There. So still single story and kind of duplex styles, as I'll show you in the renderings, but because of that, and it's still owner occupied with property lines in between the units, that requires a PDR rezoning, which is the planned development, and planned development rezonings go through a pretty rigorous review up front. So this is actually step 3 in their process. They first had to have a sketch plan reviewed by city staff, which we did with our site plan committee. That sketch plan is then reviewed at the Planning and Zoning Commission and allows the public for comment, and then they move on to the preliminary development plan. That preliminary development plan went to P&Z last week, so P&Z actually has had 2 months to review this and allow for comments. Again, the whole point of that process is that if there's comments from the public on the architecture or density or from the commission, they can change that in between the sketch and the preliminary plan. In this case, there's actually been no comments from the public or the commission. And so tonight, what they're asking for is acceptance into the minutes for the preliminary development plan. And if there's any comments or changes that need to be done, they can come back at your next council meeting with the ordinance and resolution for that preliminary and then final development plan. Basically, long story short is PDRs have to go to P&Z twice and council twice. So this is your first review. So you can see here on the subject property, you can see the surrounding zoning. Actually, this across the street here is that senior community district we no longer have in our code, but anything existing prior to 2017 remained senior community district. Properties that were to come in today for that same type of development would actually have to go to PDR. So what's going across the street here is actually compatible with what is existing there on High Street, what's been developed over the past few years. And then the property to the north, it shows outside the city limits, but actually just last month we annexed that as C2 commercial as well. So there is commercial zoning directly to the north. And as for the site plan, this is actually the sketch plan, the first one we reviewed. Walter Way is existing today. That preliminary plat and approval of the construction plans for that road was for the duplexes, but then they came forward with this plan. So you can see here, building 1 is a 4-plex, then there's 2 6-plexes, a duplex, another 4, and then a triplex. So there's 25 units total. This is an existing 30-foot street with a full 96-foot cul-de-sac, so they just have parking on one side, most likely on this northern side here, since there's already driveway cuts there, and then they would allow parking on this south side. But that is up to the developer. They just have to choose one side for parking since it's a 30-foot street. And actually, all the utilities are in place. So you see this says ESS, existing sewer line, sanitary sewer. That is a new line, but was put in, constructed already, and you can see they are actually putting the plans around this. So a big part, which is helpful to have them move this through quickly, is that PDRs are required to show existing and proposed utilities, and they are proposing to use all the existing utilities. So there's not a lot of changes here. And then you can see the proposed lot lines. So long, narrow lots here, but the property lines do have the shared walls. So these will be owner-occupied units. And then the existing tree line buffer, there's that creek to the south. You can see they're not going to disturb most of that creek. And to the north is actually the detention basin for Highland Meadows. So there's not really any existing residential development directly adjacent to it. And then here's a rendering they submitted. So you can see kind of brick and stone style. All of them have garages, and then the driveways actually are shared. So you can see here that each driveway is shared between the units. So you can't get 2 cars in there. And then so the property line basically comes right in between the garages. So this will be the same for whether it's a duplex like you see here or the 6-unit buildings down the road. And so here is actually the preliminary development plan that is submitted. So when you get past the sketch plan to the preliminary, there's obviously some more items that are listed in the checklist that they have to provide, all related to utilities and topo. So you can kind of see here all their sanitary sewer hookups are listed here, all in the rear. You can see the topo that they're going to grade out from the back. You can see the bottom here is actually the detention basin here, so they'll have some common ground easement, I'm sure, for when they get that platted finally, so that can still be maintained by the developer. And then, yeah, that's really all the additional stuff. They called out all the easements and utilities as needed. This here is set aside easement for a sign, so they will have a monument sign into the development. So that's really, staff recommends, that's really all of our comments. Staff recommends approval of the development. It is not specifically senior housing in the sense that it's required to have a certain age, but as you can see, the development style, owner-occupied, single level, is kind of naturally marketed towards that style development, so it fits into a lot of the surrounding uses on High Street, with Riverbend Estates having their Phase 3. Actually, building plans just got submitted this week, and then they have a Phase 4, as well as the assisted living to the north. So we think this is very compatible with the development we've seen on High Street. Again, went to Plain Zoning Commission twice. They passed it both times unanimously, and we allowed for public comment at both meetings and received no comments. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay.
And I just want to thank, the applicant is Bridgewater Communities, who's here, and then they have not purchased it yet, so there's two signatures in the applications with Bridgewater and then KJU. But Bridgewater is here tonight to answer any questions if you have them.
No questions for Bridgewater? You care to speak?
Hi, thank you for having me. My name's Tim Miller. I'm the owner of Bridgewater Communities. We've been building villa communities in the St. Louis area since 2003. I designed my first ones in the mid-90s. We've completed villas at River Crossing at 14th and High Street. We're building villas at Weber Farms at Rabbit Trail. We're doing villas at Franklin County, working with Bank of Franklin County down by the Country Club. And this is a new concept. These are smaller. They're, as Sal said, they're not age restricted, but they're age targeted. They're about 1,056 square feet, very nicely finished, ranch story, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes for people that decided that a half-acre, acre, 3-acre, 5-acre project is too much. They don't want to live in an apartment where they have to go up and down the stairs and park on surface parking lots. This is safety, convenience, is what these are geared for. So we see I see a big market. All I do are villas, so again, nothing is age restricted. Everything is age targeted, but there's a lot of desire for this. I built a community up in St. Peter's that we sold out very quickly. Everybody's happy up there. Kind of plays into the lifestyle housing that Sal's been talking about. So I can answer any questions if anybody has any, but it'd be a very nice community.
Looks nice, welcome.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept in the minutes.
Motion by Bear to accept. Second by Patke. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. It's accepted.
All right, and then just a quick question for Mark. Can we do the preliminary and final development plan at the same meeting since there won't be any changes?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be at the next council meeting. We'll make sure that's on your agenda. Thank you.
Okay.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Highland Meadows Plat 9 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Thank you. And my last item tonight, this is a final plat for the Riverbend Estates development directly across the street. We reviewed their preliminary plat just a couple weeks ago and actually had no required changes, but they had to have the plats, just have the signatures revised and changed from, I think it said Plat 7 at one point to Plat 9. But again, here, this is the highlighted area, and they're breaking it up in order to have Phase 3 on this slot A2, and then A1 in the back will be their Phase 4, which they show the access for actually in multiple areas whenever they're complete with Phase 3, which the building plans were submitted just last week. So you should be, in the next month or so, see those get approved and grading begin out there. And then just to kind of see how that'll lay out. It's similar to their 3-story unit to the north, or 3-story building to the north, 48 units. Just flipped. So the long way will be, the long side will be along High Street, short side here, and then this will give them access to Phase 4 in the future. And Phase 4 is planned to be the same as Phase 1. So it's basically just mirroring the first half of the development, just in reverse.
Further questions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
No, it's an ordinance.
Ordinance. Oh, gotcha. Sorry, guys.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Highland Meadows Plat 9 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke?
Yes.
Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Coulter?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 8B passes.
Mayor's report?
Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging around, everybody. Just like to say, lots of exciting stuff going on around Washington. Goodness gracious. It's good growth. It's managed growth. It's not like we see over in O'Fallon and Wentzville. I don't want to slam those communities because my grandchildren live there. But it's nice that we have a good handle on this, and we've got a good bunch of developers, and so it's a good time to be mayor. Thank you.
City Administrator's report?
As we stated in the workshop, we'll have budget workshops in August. Stay tuned, and we'll send you emails about those, but we'll definitely have it at 6 o'clock on the first meeting in August.
Council
have.
comments?
Guys have anything, comments? Okay. Take a motion.
We're not
Motion.
doing anything.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Hopmeyer to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are